This is a very special and unfortunately very emotional episode of the Fixer Punk podcast. I'm recording this at 3:32 a.m. Pacific time after Adam Page has dropped the AEW World Championship to CM Punk. This is a situation that is extremely, extremely sad for me. I tried to get on a live on Twitter briefly on this. I may add some of the audio from that to this episode, but I can't sleep right now. I have to record this now and get my thoughts out. So Adam Page's storyline is perhaps one of the most unique mechanisms that I have seen in terms of athlete activism for social change in any sport that I have seen in my over 10 years following political and activism communications and in my professional experience in the field. And to see it come to an end in this way really has just hit me very, very, very hard, and also for rather personal reasons. Those personal reasons being that Adam Page and his dispute with CM Punk has mostly been about scene co-optation and changes in leadership and dilution of the alternative culture that he helped to found around being the elite, that he helped to found through the years in AEW prior to August when CM Punk debuted. And this is rather near and dear to my heart, especially if there's somebody with Punk in the name who is the enemy here. And it's because the way I got into AEW, so I started watching AEW back on March 10th of 2021. And just a couple months prior to that, I was trying to get myself out of an organization that basically tried to destroy my life, in my opinion. And that organization was a church program that was focused on the skateboarding and punk rock communities and other action sports related communities. Had a whole lot of power in there. I'm going to name names. I have to have that cowboy courage like Adam Page. I'm going to name names. Calvary Chapel and the Whosoevers. And my confidence was destroyed. There was so much of my life that was basically ruined because I could not make decisions for myself. I couldn't think for myself. I couldn't stand up for myself because I was constantly afraid from the rhetoric that these people had. And you can tell that over time, there has been a bunch of subtle co-optations, a bunch of very, very subtle, very, very insidious. And this is stuff that I even spoke about on my TikTok at FixerPunk prior to this Adam Page match. Prior to it, I was talking a lot about how this was about co-optation and the parallels to what you saw with the corporatization of things like skateboarding, things like punk rock, and how even though Adam Page is completely misunderstood, and I feel like if I would have came out about these issues, I would have been very much misunderstood as well. But people were saying, no, nothing Adam Page is saying makes sense. But to me, it made absolute, total, and perfect sense what he was saying. But being basically emotionally and mentally marginalized and manipulated, and thinking that the only way that every single dream in my life was going to come true and all the problems in my life were going to be fixed was by staying in this church organization, these organizations largely associated with Calvary Chapel. That destroyed me, and I came across AEW through Adam Page. I know a lot of people came into AEW because of CM Punk in August, but no, I came in through Adam Page. Adam Page was the draw that brought me in to AEW. Actually, it was I saw it was his around the being the elite monologue, or not the Being the Elite monologue, Being the Elite lawnmower episode right after Revolution in 2021. And I was learning about his anxious millennial cowboy approach, and it was very impactful for me. And as I started to watch AEW, I got very much into it. I got into pro wrestling again in general. And that was a major force in helping me to rebuild my life and rebuild my confidence. I read his book, Adam and the Golden Horseshoe. I actually just reread it tonight. And the whole story of that tied in very well to the scenario that landed me trapped in this, I'm going to call it that, a cult-like organization with Calvary Chapel for so many years. A lot of the damage that was done to me was because I had a head injury on a bus that I was injured on, and I couldn't advocate for myself. I felt like my mind was so fixated in the way that I was thinking was so messed up, because I was thinking that the reason why I had that injury was because God was punishing me or chastening me, as this church was claiming. And there's a part, I'm not going to spoil Adam and the Golden Horseshoe for you, but there's a part in that book where Adam Page, his character in this children's book, it's a fictional children's book, but it has a very, very strong, very good message. I really, really recommend, especially if you were impacted by Adam Page's storyline, that you get Adam and the Golden Horseshoe. And until you are able to mentally kick out of the distress of what happened this past night, I recommend that you read it every night before you go to bed. And I think I'm going to do that. But going back to it, there's a scene where he falls down on a train and is kicked off of a train because there was a robber that got onto the train. Kind of an Old West themed story, but still, he fell off of a train, so it's close enough to a bus, and then felt very lost and felt like he would never make it to his goal. But the lesson in Adam and the Golden Horseshoe was that what he really needed was confidence and to have the strength to continue on your journey. That made me cry quite a bit. And then his Being the Elite monologue, I listened to that, and he said there, am I the bad guy? Am I the bad guy in my own drunken monologue in the woods? Or is it the way the world has conditioned me to think, when in reality I had no choice in the matter? With the rhetoric that was going on in the Calvary Chapel system of constantly blaming yourself for every single bad thing that goes wrong, and having to submit to their authority and do exactly what they told you to do, or else, even though it was done in such a subtle and insidious way that you wouldn't think it. And of course, they'd say how punk rock they were, and how they had all these people in the punk rock and skateboarding communities are supporting them. And yeah, those communities lied down, and they let these churches with tons and tons and tons of money and other types of very, very conservative operatives basically run them over and steal their lunch. So when I heard Adam Page in this match saying that he's not going to let CM Punk's approach take over AEW, because he knows what AEW could become with somebody like CM Punk, who's gone to being more of a strictly business guy rather than being a principled guy. And I'm not accusing CM Punk of anything. I do not intend to impugn CM Punk's character in any way, shape, or form. I'm sure he disagrees with the kinds of people that took advantage with me. I'm pretty sure if I were to tell CM Punk what happened to me with this church that basically put me in a sort of mind control of not being able to make any of my own decisions, not letting me do that at the fear of thinking that God was going to punish me at the next turn for making a decision. I remember actually skipping out on a pro wrestling show that I was going to go to because I felt like I had to make sure I was in church, or else I wasn't going to be safe, that if I missed even a single weekend of church, that I was going to be doomed. And they do really, really scare you sometimes in these churches about missing any of their services. And I would leave those services feeling sick, and I would leave them feeling demoralized and not believing in myself and anxious. And I related so much to Adam Page's storyline because I have spent so much time as somebody who has autism, ADHD, anxiety issues, which I've been pretty public about on this podcast. I spent a lot of time trying to deal with those problems and trying to achieve success and trying to challenge for championship in my own way, in my own life. And his story is a major inspiration, all the way down to the really, really fun or funny stuff, like the full gear challenge, which I mentioned in a prior episode of this podcast. To get in shape, I've realized after watching pro wrestling that I wanted to pack on. I actually thought, you know what? I've been spending years trying to get into that, like the surfer body type, but I realized I needed to pack on some muscle. I want to be like these people on pro wrestling. And then hearing him say that he would need to get skinnier and bigger because he's skinny and fat, that was pretty impactful for me and inspiring me to try to get in better shape. I'm nowhere near being full gear ready right now. I will admit that right away. But I feel like I'll look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, dang, I'm starting to look like a fighter. And my confidence has improved since hearing Adam Page's storyline, seeing him challenge the title and finding that group of friends supporting him in the Dark Order. And with his level of humility and his care, and the fact that he is representing politically progressive viewpoints while being a strong cowboy, is in and of itself pretty much unheard of. Now I work around a lot of people in politics, and if I were to show them Adam Page, and I try to cowboy pill as many of my colleagues as possible, and I will continue to do so even though he's dropped the championship, you'll see that Adam Page is really, really an outlier. He's fully a cowboy. He has a history of being on a family farm. He has a lot of strength, a lot of principle. He lives by his principles, and frankly, he dropped the title by his principles because he wasn't going to take that title belt at the end of the match and use it to inflict damage on CM Punk. A guy like CM Punk seems like he's more co-optable. And CM Punk's model of punk rock activism has been tried a lot, been successful in many cases, but what we need right now, what we desperately need for progressive change, is we need examples of both vulnerability and strength, because a huge part of the radicalization of young people today in America right now is people that claim that they can transform anxious millennial cowboys into champions. That's kind of, obviously they're not using Adam Page terminology, but that's what the pitch is for a lot of these extremist groups that even on prior episodes I've mentioned are using fitness Instagrams to recruit people to intolerant, hateful, racist, sexist, homophobic ideologies. We need that strong counterexample, but we don't just need a strong counterexample who's a part of the establishment, somebody like CM Punk. We need somebody that is new and grassroots and specific to that to that rural lifestyle. Adam Page says the people who win in the end are the people who do, and I'm going to change this, the people who do cowboy stuff. I don't want to swear on this podcast. And that is a true electoral reality in the United States of America. And it is true in how we prevent the radicalization of young men specifically. We need people that can do cowboy stuff. And Adam Page is the perfect example for that. This movement is needed for so many reasons. And I'm seeing so many people online talking about how Adam Page just helped change their lives. And I dream of the day when people will find Adam Page and be driven away. They will themselves kick out of extremist ideas. They kick out of cults because they have gained the strength and the confidence from learning that it is possible to fight for socially progressive workers' rights. Adam Page mentioned workers' rights specifically in his promos related to CM Punk, but that's hardly the first time he's done so. In the Being the Elite Lawnmower episode, he was sort of alluding to organizing a union. And I think he actually gives a pretty good tutorial in that episode of how to organize a union. And really, you see, the thing is that there is this constant perception of that progressives and leftists are completely out of touch, with masculinity, that they're anti-masculine, anti-strength, anti-you becoming the embodiment of a pro wrestling champion. They don't want you to get tough. They don't want you to be strong. And there aren't too many counterexamples to that, too many good counterexamples to that we can find in popular mainstream media. Adam Page filled that void. In terms of the social impact, Adam Page fills an absolutely necessary void that CM Punk really doesn't. CM Punk, of course, he's definitely a progressive activist. You can see from some of the statements he's made most recently around abortion, but he doesn't quite fill that void that Adam Page does, specifically for young people that are in vulnerable situations, emotionally vulnerable situations, people that are the anxious millennial cowboys out there, people that are not doing so well emotionally, not quite perfect, and that get swooped up by people that are doing bad things, that have bad ideas. And that was really a place where Adam Page and his movement shined. And I just wish that this title run could have gone longer and could have been even more socially impactful and been more of an inspiration and more of a driver of young people to make improvements in their lives while helping others and while advocating for policies and changes and systems that can help strengthen all of us and help bring us closer to being champions. Because becoming a champion is not just an individual thing. Adam Page was supported by a group called the Dark Order that came around him. It is a collective and it is a community thing for us to each reach our full potential. I have tried throughout this. I've been a bit disappointed myself. I thought that during this title run that I would use this to really, really transform my life, really get myself in full gear ready shape and use this as inspiration. And I feel like I failed. I feel like I haven't come as far as I've wanted to. I was hoping that by the time AEW is coming into town here to Los Angeles, and I was hoping by that time that this podcast would be going a lot stronger, that I'd be getting Adam Page on here, that I'd be sitting in a studio, or I'd be sitting there at the Forum in LA, interviewing Adam Page and telling him how much his storyline changed my life. I feel like I've kind of squandered an opportunity, and I've squandered a lot of opportunities in my life. A lot of them. And I thought that this would push me in the right way. It makes me feel like, am I a failure? Is this movement a failure? But I know that I can't believe that, because I know that Adam Page would tell me that when a cowboy gets knocked down, bloodied, trampled, they get back up and they keep on riding until they find their peace. And the one thing that I do not want to happen from Adam Page losing this title is for us to lose our own fight for the championships and for the titles in our own lives. This should be inspiration, should be motivation, that now that Adam Page is no longer champion, and I do believe wrestling analysts are saying that because Adam Page and his career is going to be pretty long, given his age and his level of physical conditioning, which is really exceptional, that he's going to have many more title runs. But what I don't want to happen is I don't want this to be something where I forget about these lessons or I throw them away. I throw away the things Adam Page told me to do. Tonight, after seeing him drop the title, and because of all of this sort of karma-driven kind of thinking that I had from being in this church, of believing that God is constantly looking for ways to get me, that stuff started to re-enter my mind. I'm thinking, is this my idea that I need to get away from watching wrestling? I need to get away from AEW and go back to this cult church skateboarder manipulation, turn skateboarders into hyper-conservatives, organizational chokehold? And I thought, no. Adam Page would want me to stay strong. Adam Page wants all of us to stay strong. He wants all of us to learn how to do cowboy shit. Cowboy shit isn't just something, and I just swore on this podcast, and I'm sorry about that. But cowboy shit is something that's for all of us to do, for all of us to learn, for all of us to use every day in our lives. Adam Page fought so hard for that championship. He fought so hard to inspire each and every single one of us and to create the example, to create the model that we can use to drive change and transformation in our communities, and to show, look, you can tell that young kid who's about to fall to some crazy nut job on the alt-right that, look, you can be the biggest, baddest, strongest cowboy in the world. And you can care about climate change. You can care about workers' rights. You can care about changing the world. Because as Adam Page says, and I have his quote on the wall, I have it on my wall here, and I'm going to keep it up. I'm going to keep it up. I'm not going to let this traumatize me. I'm not going to let this bring me down. As Darby Allin says, you will not break me mentally. If history teaches us anything, it is that the people who need deep in their souls to change the world, those are the people who win in the end. Those were the words Adam Page said in a promo prior to his original title match against Chris Jericho. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional here. Those are words that I will still continue to live by and try my hardest to live by. And now that we have been handed this movement, that's how I see it. I see it today that it's been handed off to us. The Adam Page movement has now been handed to us. It is our responsibility to move it forward and to live the way that Adam Page was inspiring us to live, and to get through the challenges in our own lives, to be able to build something that does change the world. If you want to join me, I feel like a big part of Adam Page's whole storyline was his relationship with the Dark Order, which really to me felt like a good example of a leaderless collective organization coming together to support each other. And I thought that somehow in being engaged in this, and I thought that I had tickets to AEW Dynamite in LA, but I don't think I'm going to be able to go. I think I'm too traumatized to go, knowing that this is going to be a big victory lap for CM Punk. I need a group of people, and I think we all, as Adam Page supporters, as fans, need a group of people like the Dark Order to come around us and start working and having good relationships with people. And frankly, I need to meet some wrestling fans. I am so tempted to want to go to the Rampage AEW in Ontario, because I'm going to definitely have to sell my tickets for LA, but I feel like maybe I want to go to Rampage, because I want to be around other wrestling fans. I feel like the community around professional wrestling right now is a great social movement. It is doing AEW, and what it has spurred is doing what you started to see in terms of social activism from skateboarding and punk rock in the early 80s and the 90s, before all the corporate co-optation, before all these religious and conservative organizations got involved, before you got guys with 100 radio stations that they're on who are spouting out COVID conspiracy theories and lies. People like Ryan Reese, the founder of the Whosoevers, who's like kind of held out to be this larger than life figure in skateboarding and in terms of mental health and substance abuse. Before all those people came in, you had an incredible community. Before skateboarding wound up in the Olympics, you had an incredibly unique, vibrant, relatable culture where you really felt at home rather than you were just consuming a product of entertainment. You felt like you were at home with people. And that's how I felt watching AEW, watching Being the Elite, that I was at home with these people. And Adam Page was right to fight for the heart and the soul of AEW. Even though CM Punk is a good guy, the direction is not something that is in line with this friendly community that we were trying to build. But if you're an Adam Page supporter, if you had personal impact from Adam Page's storyline and you want to talk to somebody, you can always reach out to me. My email is Grayson, GREYSON, @GraysonPeltier.com. I'm going to put that in the description of this episode. Almost feels kind of weird keeping the name of this episode the Fixer Punk Podcast when we are standing against CM Punk. I may rename this podcast. I'm not entirely sure. But what I want more than anything, more than a name, is I want a community around of people that are inspired to create social change while being strong, while doing cowboy shit. People who are going to continue to, even as this title run is gone, we've got to double up. We've got to go double or nothing on our efforts to live the Adam Page way. And that is a commitment that I want to take on in partnership with other people, with a community of people like the Dark Order. So reach out to me, please. You can use the contact form on fixerpunk.com, or you can just email Grayson at GraysonPeltier.com, and I will definitely respond to you. I'll make sure that I respond to you, and we can have a talk anytime. Anytime. My email is open. Easiest way, just fill out the contact form on fixerpunk.com. Go to the top menu, hit the contact button, fill out the form. It comes right to me. All right, I'm Grayson Peltier, and I still believe that the people who win in the end are the people who do cowboy shit.